Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?
My dog went flying through the air over the tree. I don't know how it did it.
Okay.
Other fascinating stories from the Western hunt for the Yeti are those of the Yeti relics, stored for hundreds of years in remote monasteries in the high mountains. The most famous of these artifacts are the mummified Yeti hand and scalp of Pangboche, and the Kum Jung Monastery Yeti scalp. These artifacts also played a significant part in the Tom Slick expeditions, as well as in the expeditions of Sir Edmund Hillary in 1960. No one knows exactly how many Yeti artifacts exist in the remote monasteries of Tibet, Nepal, and Bhutan, but very likely more than the 5 to 10 that are known to the public. 2 of these artifacts were in the possession of Western science for a short moment in history. While mainstream media tried to convince the public that the so-called Yeti scalps and the mummified Yeti hands were just simple forgeries, mostly created from the hair of mountain goats and similar animals, reality is a lot more complicated and fascinating. Members of the Tom Slick expedition first heard accounts of a Yeti hand held as a ritual artifact in the monastery at Pangboche during one of the first abominable snowman treks in 1957. The Slick expedition was also the first to bring photographs of the hand back to the West, as Peter Byrne managed to photograph the mummified Pangboche Yeti hand in 1958. Byrne later stated that he was absolutely shocked and baffled by the finding, and that what he had seen in the monastery of Pangboche was undoubtedly a large mummified primate hand. During the next 2 years, members of the expeditions gathered more information on the Pangboche hand, and an effort to further examine it was planned. But the monks of Pangboche Monastery, who were responsible for the artifacts, refused to allow the removal of parts of the hand or the scalp for scientific study. After many failed attempts by the expeditions to convince the monks, Peter Byrne stole pieces of the finger bones of the hand, replaced the stolen bone fragments with human bones, and then rewrapped the hand to disguise his theft. Byrne then smuggled the bones from Nepal into India, where Hollywood actor James Stewart, who was visiting India at the time, smuggled the bones out of the country by concealing them in his luggage when he flew from Calcutta to London. Stewart allegedly bypassed security by hiding the bones of the Yeti hand among his wife's undergarments. London University primatologist William Charles Hill conducted a physical examination of the bone pieces that Byrne supplied. His first findings were that they were hominid in nature. After continued investigations of the bones, he decided that the Pangboche fragments were a closer match to a Neanderthal than to Homo sapiens, but belonged to a yet unknown subspecies of the hominid branch. 3 decades later, in 1991, it was discovered that the Slick expedition consultant and American anthropologist George Agogino had retained samples of the alleged Yeti hand. The NBC program Unsolved Mysteries obtained the samples and determined they were similar to human tissue, but were not human. DNA tests could only verify that they were near human, but could not identify the species to which the bone fragments belonged. After the broadcast of the NBC program in 1991, the entire hand and the scalp were stolen from the monastery in Pangboche and remain missing to this day. Only the samples retained by George Agogino have survived of the mummified Yeti hand of Pangboche, and today are in the possession of cryptozoologist and Bigfoot researcher Lauren Coleman. Another fascinating and well-documented story is that of the Kum Jung Yeti scalp. In 1960, Sir Edmund Hillary returned to the Himalayas to mount the so-called Silver Hut expedition, which was to collect and analyze physical evidence of the Yeti. The expedition followed rumors they had heard earlier among the Sherpas to Kum Jung Monastery, where the head or the scalp of a Yeti was said to have been stored for many generations. In early 1961, the expedition located an artifact that looked like the scalp of a gorilla in the remote monastery of Kum Jung. While Sir Edmund Hillary was also not able to convince the monks in the monastery to give him samples of the scalp, he instead managed the flight of an entire delegation of monks from Kum Jung, including the village's headman and the overseer of the monastery, to London, to guard the scalp during its journey into the Western world. In London, under the supervision of the monks, a small sample was cut off for testing. Detailed examination of the sample of skin and hair from the margin of the alleged Yeti scalp followed, and the samples were compared with those from known monkeys, black bears, blue bears, and mountain goats. Finally, the scientists concluded that the sample most closely matched those of the Siro, an extremely rare species of mountain goat, but must belong to a yet undiscovered subspecies of the Siro, as the samples from the Kum Jung monastery significantly differed in color and structure from those of any known types. The scientists were also not able to determine from which part of the body of the alleged Siro the samples most likely were taken, and they were finally classified as of unknown origin. So, the examination of Yeti artifacts done by Western science leaves an enormous amount of room for speculation about a yet undiscovered animal in the Himalayas, and are not proven hoaxes, as mainstream media mostly assumes or suggests. Another anecdote from the 1960 expedition of Sir Edmund Hillary tells of a side trip Hillary and Marlin Perkins took to Nepal, as they had also heard the rumors of a Yeti relic in the monastery of Pangboche in the high mountains. Hillary examined the mummified Yeti hand of the cloister and immediately dismissed it as a human fakery, not aware that he was looking at the same relic from which Peter Byrne had stolen bones only a few years earlier, and replaced the original parts with human bones. Many more stories on the Yeti are known and well documented, and are still coming from the Himalayas to this day. In April 2019, reports aroused international attention as an Indian Army mountaineering expedition team found large footprints.